Welcome to the Senior Scoop, where experience meets community. Hi, I'm Deborah Samuel.
And I'm Kelsey Samuel. We're your hosts, bringing you real stories, trusted advice, and expert tips for seniors and their families right here in beautiful Santa Barbara.
Now, let's meet the incredible team behind the scenes at SBSOS, making it all possible.
The Senior Scoop is proudly brought to you by SBSOS, Santa Barbara's support network for seniors. Visit sbsos.care or call us at 805-946-0060 to learn more.
Now, let's dive into this week's Senior Scoop. Welcome. I'm Deborah Samuel here this morning with Kelsey Samuel and Michael Daly with the SBSOS Senior Scoop, all things real estate, downsizing, and estate sales. We're very excited to have Michael here with us this morning, who works with the County of Santa Barbara Deputy Assessor's Office. Did I get all that correct?
Yes, pretty much. It's the assessor's office. I'm the chief deputy under Joe Holland.
All right, wonderful. Well, this morning, I'd like to, first of all, thank you for spending time with us. Kelsey and I have some great questions, but I think it's always fun for viewers to get to know a little bit about you, Michael, behind the scenes. I know you're quite the outdoorsman.
Yes, we heard that you originally grew up in San Diego, another beautiful California coastal town.
Yes, I'm from San Diego. I grew up in East County, San Diego. And I love surfing the beaches down there. Then moved here for school. Went to UCSB.
Oh.
And I've now been here for over 20 years. And
it's amazing how many people go to UCSB and then stay.
Yes. I've also heard from folks that have raised their children here that, of course, they naturally like to go away and get out. And oftentimes will end up in San Diego. So I think we have a nice sister city thing going on.
We do. In fact, Deb and I spent some time down in San Diego earlier this year and went to see the Midway. Deborah's really into World War II memorabilia, so we went and visited the Midway.
But I did enjoy the boardwalk. There are so many, we're very nautical, have a boat we live on at the harbor. And so anything boats for us is always a passion.
Yeah.
So I know that you really wanted to bring Michael on here today, specifically to talk real estate and Proposition 19. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that. I know that we've had clients who've asked us about this in the past. So bringing on the expert to help guide us through this process.
One of the things I think that would just help our viewers is maybe give us just a large overview of Proposition 19, just a cap, in cap.
So it's a two-part property tax exclusion program, if you will. It's accessible to all property owners. It's an exclusion program that has a lot of requirements, and it's a two-parter. There's pre-existing law to this, right? So Prop 19 before this, you had Prop 58, which was the intergenerational transfer exclusion, and then you had Prop 60, which was the base year value transfer exclusion. So it's just a revamp of those laws. So Prop 19 replaces those two, and it has different criteria. So I'm happy to explain a little bit more about what intergenerational transfers are and what base year value transfers are.
Well, just taking it from a really basic standpoint, like what does Proposition 19 do? Like for someone who doesn't really know why is there even this law?
Yeah, so what it does is it allows qualifying property owners to retain their Prop 13 factored base year value. And again, it depends on the criteria, right? So if we're talking intergenerational transfers, the Prop 19 intergenerational transfer allows a parent to pass along their primary residence to a child or potentially children. There's a lot of different scenarios. And then the child could retain their parents' Prop 19 or their Prop 13, tax base. So similarly with the base year value transfer, it's an exclusion essentially an exclusion from reassessment, where you can take the Prop 13 base value from a property that you sell and transfer it to a property that you purchase or newly construct, at a different site. So it's an exclusion from getting reassessed at full fair market cash value.
Right, and with property taxes so high, I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for people to upgrade their living environment or pass a home onto their children without burdening them with higher property taxes, essentially.
The base year value transfer is some of the primary criteria is that you be 55 and over, or it's accessible to disabled veterans or victims of natural disasters. So that's that. And then on the intergenerational, it is fairly strictly parent to child, although there's, what is a child? There's some definitions that get clarified in the law of who qualifies on that end. And there's also a grandparent to grandchild as well, if the parents happen to be.
I was going to ask you about that, because that comes up a lot for us, where we've had,
Right.
particularly working with seniors, where we have grandparents say, well, can I encourage my grandson to come back to Santa Barbara by, luring him with my home?
Yes, however, unfortunately, the parents need to be deceased. The only way the grandparent can pass it directly to the grandchild is if that middle step is not there. So it's a yes, but a no. And again, I'll just try to preface this too. I am not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice. Everybody needs to kind of do their own due diligence, because every scenario is different, and there are a lot of detailed criteria for these exclusions. So it's always good to get advice from a real estate attorney or a professional that knows property tax law, because there are details that need to be taken into consideration. And I know one thing, and you'll probably ask about, is trusts. Vesting is a huge element of this. And what about trusts? Vesting in the property, having it vested in a trust does not exclude you or preclude you from qualifying, but there are details to each trust that matter. So who's involved in the trust? What kind of, what's the structure of it? What are the terms of it? Does it include ownership interests of people that aren't in the family? And ultimately, too, with the Prop 19 intergenerational, the big change that everybody's kind of, I think, a little shocked by is the primary residence criteria. And not just to the transferee. So it's not just that the child has to live in the property as their primary residence. Transferor has to have it as their primary residence as well. So it didn't used to be like that. That is a big change that is hard to swallow sometimes. It really changed the exclusion.
Well, that is one of the reasons why we really wanted to bring you on the show today, is because there are so many new changes, and there's a lot of it's a complex topic. There's a lot of things you wouldn't even imagine. So let's review some of the criteria, the requirements for you have to be 55 and over.
That's for the base value.
Base value
transfer.
tag.
And again, back to that again, there's two parts to this, right? The 55 and over base year value transfer. It used to be that Santa Barbara County would not take base year value transfers from other counties. Now it's a statewide program. So you can transfer bases if you're 55 and over, disabled vet, victim of a disaster. You can transfer it within the county. You can transfer it between any county. So that is a big change. And a lot of questions come up about that, about what are the statistics on that? Are we losing revenue at the county level? And thankfully, right now, the way it's going, we have not seen a big loss due to that change. But yes, 55 and over is one of the primary criteria.
I think what's also interesting is, from what I'm hearing, is that if you're going to do the grandparents to grandchild, and if unfortunately the parents are no longer deceased or maybe even in the picture, is that needs to be done before the grandparents move into and buy into a senior living community where they may then be living full time. That really does have to be their primary residence. So this is sort of like a pre-planning process for when the people are really looking at their retirement plans.
Right. That's a really good point. That primary residence criteria is very important. And with that, I think another note for your audience to know is that for the assessor's office, what's important for us is the homeowner's exemption form or application. So making sure you have your homeowner's exemption on your primary residence really helps us determine that it is indeed your primary residence. Otherwise, you have the added burden of trying to prove that and trying to prove that you've lived there. And yes, to your point, to your question, if you're a grandparent or a parent passing along property with a child, you're going to want to address these real estate decisions prior to vacating the home, obviously, because if the primary residence criteria is there, then that can change things. If it's no longer your primary residence, you may not qualify.
And we do see that sometimes where a couple might move into a senior living campus and leave the house vacant for years and do nothing with the house. This would definitely kick in as possibly not being able to use that exclusion.
Potentially, it's everything is so scenario based, and I hate to say no. There's no way that kind of scenario wouldn't qualify. I think there's a lot of factors that we have to take into consideration with everybody's given scenario, and then our task is to administer the law fairly, equitably, consistently, regardless of each individual case. But we do have to look at each individual one. So it's quite a task for us. It has proved quite a lot more work to do. We used to be able to determine qualification for what was Prop 58, and if it qualified, our office didn't have to reassess it. Now we have to reassess every single Prop 19 transfer, because this is an important factor to remember too, is that you have to maintain qualification. So what do I mean by that? Is if you're successful in doing the transfer to the child, it's their primary residence. Well, they only qualify and maintain that Prop 13 factor base year value. They call it the new taxable value. They only maintain that as long as they're living there. So if they move out, then it comes off. So, and then what happens is we reassessed it, or we set a base value when the transfer occurred from the parent to child, and in the background we're tracking that. Even though you're getting the benefit of the exclusion, we're responsible for tracking what it would have been or what it would be at its new assessed value. Then should you come out of the exclusion program, we have to put that factor value on. So what I mean is we have to value basically every Prop 19 claim, when in the past we only had to value the ones that didn't qualify.
Wow. There's so many small things that happen behind the scenes that are important for people to understand.
I think another area that I'd like to address, sort of getting back to the senior living communities, because obviously that's, a lot of our clientele are moving into the senior living communities here in town. Because the senior living community becomes their primary residence, is there any benefit with them and Prop 19, or why wouldn't there be a benefit? How can you explain that?
It's a complicated situation. I think a lot depends on the scenario, but just in general, if you move into a senior living community and that becomes your primary residence, that's you no longer you still own that property that you moved from, but your situation there, there's nothing to move a base to, because you no longer own. You're a member of a community. You don't own a parcel there,
Right.
So there's nothing to move the base to.
Right.
First and foremost, the only different scenario would be is if you move to a senior community that was, very independent parcel units, like a gated community, basically.
Yes.
I know there's those kinds of senior communities, but I think what you're kind of talking about more is the like the San Marcand or what's the Marvia, places like that. There's nothing to move the base to there.
Right.
And if you've vacated and it's not your primary residence anymore, that could potentially jeopardize the ability for you to pass it on. But you have to read the law, and every scenario is different. I think a lot depends on whether you've had somebody move in to the property vacated or not,
Yes.
whether if you've partially transferred ownership in
Yes.
some way, just a lot depends. So I don't want to say outright no. If you move into an assisted living community, you will not qualify. That may not be the case.
Yes.
There's circumstances where we could potentially still.
Right. Now, getting back to the trust, etc. Like, you really do need to explore your options with an appropriate attorney.
That is my only advice that I will give today is talk to a real estate attorney, talk to somebody who deals in estate law, maybe, any professional that is kind of familiar with the property tax law, because they do need to look at your specific scenario, how your trust is structured,
Yes.
what your actual plan is, or the reality of you moving out or who's moving in. All of that stuff it's very scenario based. So it's hard I have to stay very general in my answers because
No, it's good. I mean, I think what is being exemplified here is just how complex it really is.
it is a little complicated.
And that there are always different factors that can come into play that will influence someone's rights here. But there is a law out there that does allow, at least, for people to have the potential to explore this as a very good option to maintaining wealth.
And so what you're reminding me of right now is maybe a question that's on people's minds is like, well, where can I go to learn about the basics of this law?
Yes.
Right? Because hearing it right now, it's probably wheels spinning, and I'm not sure what does he mean and what is that. There's a great resource. You can always go to our website, SBCAssessor.com, and navigate through. We can kind of put you through to the right place. But the Board of Equalization's website is, I think, phenomenal in terms of providing the resources and the FAQs and fact sheets and how the laws change, and in a digestible way that people can understand. So I'm not pointing people to the Board of Equalization's website to go read the law, because the law is quite dry and arduous, and leave the attorneys to read the law.
Yeah.
Right.
But for any property owner that just wants to get the basics understanding of Prop 19, BOE.ca.gov, you can type in Prop 19 in the search bar, and there's fact sheets, which I think I provided. That
Yes,
hopefully
and we'll be attaching those at the bottom of the webcast. You'll be able to click on there and go straight to that website. So that's very helpful.
It is great. They have charts there that show this is what the law, how it was, this is how it is now, this is when it was effective, here's examples. And the FAQs are great because they're the pretty common FAQs of and FAQs, frequently asked questions, sorry. And they really do provide very good answers that are understandable and digestible.
Well, I know that it's always helpful to have a real live example. So we're going to give you the magic iPad to
Sure.
do like a worksheet scenario of that base. We're going to set up like a scenario of a house and what it might look like if you were to transfer that tax base. So are you ready for the iPad?
I think so.
All right. All right, Michael, let's do some math and let's talk a little bit about the intergenerational transfer.
Sure. So a couple criteria with that is a lot of the law hinges around it being within a year that the original property be transferred, that you have to have the resident move in and do the homeowners exemption claim for the transferee. But what the math will do here is going to explain how is the new taxable value put on. So let's just say you have, I'm going to say FBYV, that stands for a factored base year value, of a property you've owned since, let's say, the 80s. And so the factored base year value, the assessed value right now is, let's just say it's around $600,000. Not too bad, right? Because most houses in the area now, they're well over that, right? So you're still pretty good. Then they have a $1 million cap on top of what your factored base year value is that gets calculated in the exclusion. So in this case, you have $1.6 million of eligible exclusion amount. Now let's just pretend the home is worth $1.9 million. So the FMV, or the fair market value, the law will often say full cash value. They're all the same. The market value is 1.9. That's what it would sell for on an open market transaction, right? So the difference there, right, between those two is $300,000. That's what is called the excess value. It's part of this calculation. Now, what happens? What becomes the assessed value with the exclusion being granted? The law terms it as the new taxable value, and it's that previous base. You're getting the full benefit of the previous base, but we're catching you up a bit. We're kind of keeping you with the times. You're still gonna get hit a little bit, and you're gonna get that excess value tacked on as well. So it becomes the 600,000 plus the 300,000 is your new taxable value is 900,000. So that's the exclusion. The assessor's office, meanwhile, if we agree to this being the fair market value, you're having this as the new taxable value going on into the future. Let's say now you're the child that lives there and you got a new job in Chicago or something, and you're going to move away, and you're not transferring it to, I don't know, you're transferring it not to a sibling, because if you do transfer to another sibling, another child, you could potentially still get the exclusion. But if you come off in any way, there's a recalculation that will take place. So just to my prior example, we're going to still track in our office, we have to still track this as the base value that's kind of, factoring forward during your qualification of this exclusion. So it's a little arduous. Like it created a system now we didn't used to have in the assessor's office, where for each property that has this kind of claim, we're not just tracking one value, we're tracking two values. The data is immense. But anyway, I think this is a good example of excess. So the question may come in, well, what if it's, I have this $1 million, so I have $1.6 million, but what if the property's worth $1.6 million? Well, then that's a zero. If this is not $1.9 million, it's $1.6 million or less, then you're going to maintain that base, the factored base from the parent.
Thank you, Michael, for putting that on paper, because people learn in different ways, kinesthetically, visually, auditory learners, and it really helps when you see the math on paper. So that was a great example, because in our town, it's very common intergenerational transfer. Like the houses down on Butterfly Lane, they stay in the family for years and years and years and years. And these are multi-million-dollar homes.
Right. Where in the past, they could stay in the family for years and years and generations, but you wouldn't necessarily have to live in them. That's the big change. That's the one that's kind of getting people. Is like, well, but I love that house, but I live in San Fran, or I live in St. Louis, or whatever. People's children don't all still live in Santa Barbara.
Right.
Maybe they'd love to come back. If that's the case, that's great, because to qualify for the exclusion and keep the low base, you need the transferee needs to live there.
So what are some of the myths that you see coming into your office that maybe people are not aware of, the new changes in that primary residence? What would be maybe a couple of the myths you see?
Well, I don't know if it's the myth. It's just the belief that the law hasn't changed, or that it didn't change in the way it actually did. People think that the criteria is still what it used to be.
Right.
And so the immediate question I think we often get, particularly if somebody's filing a claim form and there's a denial, is, well, why? What changed? And that's exactly what we're talking about here today. Well, there's a big change is the primary residence. You're trying to pass it to your child, but you don't have the homeowners exemption claim on it. It's not your primary home, or it's not going to be your child's primary home. And it's like, that's like rule number one in the property tax rule. It says very clearly.
Yep.
I think that's what gets a lot of people, honestly. And then the second and equally big thing, like I mentioned earlier, is trusts. Trusts are, and if anybody that was on that webinar with First American Title that I was on with Fung Law, an assessor from Northern California, he had the right answer, which is, I don't know if you remember this, but it depends. It all depends. A lot depends. And so trusts are complicated. They can be frustrating for people, especially when they're trying to make plans and figure it out. And that's the same even for my family. I've got a mother and a father who actually passed recently, so that's played into the bailiwick of it. And we're 4 boys. 2 of us live in San Diego, 2 of us don't. It's families, right?
Right.
I know that's definitely one of the things we talk to our clients about when we first meet them is, have you updated your trust? That's not our wheelhouse. We, get with a an elder attorney, somebody who works in trust, make sure that that trust is updated, because we run into people who have not touched or looked at their trust in 30 years.
And then you have something like Proposition 19 that comes along and they're not necessarily aware of that, or the trust is not structured accordingly. Yeah.
And there's I know a few estate attorneys in town who are really great and diligent and know about this, and I think can help people with it. If it were me, I'll just speak for myself, but if I were going to get a trust done or redone, and I said to the attorney, "What about Prop 19?" and they said, "What?" Then I don't know. Yeah. That would give me pause, because it is important, especially if you have real estate assets, which most people, when you're doing trusts, it kind of revolves around real estate typically. So good to get good legal advice in this case.
Well, I know a lot of people love Santa Barbara, and let's circle back. I know you're an outdoorsman. You're raising your family here in Santa Barbara. If you could leave the audience with, a little bit of like some of your favorite things you love about living here in Santa Barbara, that would be fun to share with the viewers.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to do that, because we often get labeled as stuffy bureaucrats with and all we're interested in is sticking it to you and getting as much revenue for the county as we can, and that's just not the case. We're all human too. We're all public servants in our assessor's office. We care a lot about how we administer all the property tax programs. So yeah, I appreciate that. I too am your neighbor, your friend. I live in Santa Barbara here. I have a wife and son. He's almost 4. We have a dog as well, and I just love it here. I love the proximity of mountain to beach. I definitely like hiking. I like surfing and sailing. I love swimming. And then I love music. I remember, I still miss Muddy Waters when it was here, the little cafe down on Haley. But I love music, love the Santa Barbara Bowl, love the Botanic Garden, love going down to the harbor, and there's so much to offer here, and it's all kind of right here. And North County too. I mean, not to leave out North County. I love the Guadalupe Dunes and Santa Maria. We have an office up there. It's in the Valley, all great parts of the county. I've gone up to Gaviota, and Gaviota is amazing.
It's amazing, actually. World. It's some of the best ways to see the whale migration, actually, is to stand on the point at Gaviota and see the whales go by.
Yep. And Cuyama, too. I mean, a lot of people are startled when Cuyama's in our county? Yeah, it's in our county. It's it takes a little bit to get out there, but it's beautiful out there. Yeah. I really I do love the county. It's a great place to live, and I hope when my son gets older that he won't be one of those ones that's like, I need to move away. And I'm like, hey, we scraped and sacrificed it so we could live here.
We could all stay here. Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why Kelsey and I do this show is to disseminate, great information, and we really appreciate you, Michael, coming on the show today on the Senior Scoop and sharing a little bit about Proposition 19.
It's been really wonderful. As the non-realtor sitting at the table here, definitely had a lot of issues clarified today. So thank you so much, Michael.
Great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And if there's any questions left unanswered, again, you can get to our website, sbcassessor.com. Check out the Board of Equalization's website, boe.ca.gov. And I hope we didn't miss anything, like your music. You were going to ask me about music.
I was going to. Well, we just
maybe
bought
it's too late
to Music Academy of the West, because we love Music Academy of the West, and the summer season is obviously coming up. Big classical music fans. I think we just bought something to Don Giovanni and
the Gershwin coming up at ETC.
Yeah, are you a fan of Music Academy of the West?
I am. We haven't gone there a lot though. I love that property they have. It's amazing.
Let's talk about its value.
Of course, coming from the assessor, the assessor's office. I love the property, the finishes on the building.
It is a very, very beautiful.
It's a beautiful spot. Yeah, right. Right there on Butterfly. And I love classical music, but I'm a musician, a bit of a musician, and I really love
what's your instruments?
I play harmonica, guitar, and sing. So I'm kind of like the Bob Dylan style.
We have a lot here at the common at the table.
Perfect.
Little harmonica and ukulele going on.
Nice. Yeah. I'm in that classic rock singer-songwriter era. I love that.
Well, maybe next time we'll play a little ditty for a little jam session.
That sounds good.
Well, I'm Deborah Samuel here with my co-host Kelsey Samuel here at the Senior Scoop, and We'll see you next time right here in Santa Barbara, California on our podcast series.